updates. Indonesia's disaster management agency says people are still believed to be trapped inside several buildings in areas hit by the powerful 7.7 magnitude earthquake. BNPB chief Suharyanto says that the landslides have blocked a number of roads, hampering rescue efforts on the ground. He says that disaster response teams are now prioritizing those trapped in the buildings as their initial targets. Rescue operations are continuing as teams work to reach the worst affected areas. Atul continues to be with us at the broadcast. Atul, walk us through the details, because the understanding that we have is that Indonesia's disaster management agency is saying that there are people who are presently stuck under the debris, and to help them out is their top priority at the moment. Give us the details of the worst affected areas at the moment.
Well, the details that we have so far is that the National Disaster Management Agency, or the BNPB, they have confirmed that at least 38 people have lost their lives and over a dozen people have, gotten injured in the whole earthquake and whatever that followed, buildings collapsing, as well as, tremors that, really dilapidated several buildings and commercial outlets as well. Now, what we're given to understand is that casualties have been concentrated in the Sika Regency, where at least 20 bodies, were recovered early on. So out of 38 fatalities, what we're given to understand is that 20 bodies were recovered from this particular Sika Regency area. And now the rescue efforts are obviously on, but as we have been showing right since morning how, several of the roads have been blocked because of the the whole of the buildings, collapsing on those roads, as well as the fact that there has also been, cases of power outages also heavily affecting any sort of rescue mission, as well as the fact that, there have been landslides in several areas that has also blocked roads and access to those particular most affected areas. So that has certainly led to some delays, but, the more and more manpower are being deployed in those particular areas to find out more and more missing people who are afraid to be, trapped under the debris of those collapsed buildings.
Right, Atul, continue to be with us on the broadcast. We have some more breaking news coming in. Tsunami waves of less than a meter were reported in several parts of Indonesia following the early morning earthquake. The tsunami warnings issued immediately after the earthquake was withdrawn. After about 3 hours, authorities continue to monitor the situation along the coastline. Atul, help us understand over here, because tsunami warnings were issued, then 3 hours after the earthquake they were withdrawn. At present, what is it that the authorities are saying?
Given the fact that, the depth of this tsunami, of this earthquake was inside the sea, and given the fact that the depth was not really deep, in fact it was quite shallow, just a 15-kilometer deep. So that could obviously, had sent fears about a tsunami that could follow the earthquake, and that was, in fact, signs of that was also seen when about 1 meter high waves was seen erupting in the sea. And that is when we saw tsunami warnings were issued by the authorities, particularly the Indonesian Meteorology and Climatology Department. They issued this alert regarding a tsunami. But later on, the alert regarding the tsunami was withdrawn, given the fact that the dangers and fears regarding the tsunami sort of, really came down, and that is why we see that this alert has been withdrawn as of now. Obviously, the situation is better when it comes to the prospect of tsunami, but as I said, the rescue and relief effort keeps getting delayed, and that has been affected because of the landslides and electricity outages in these areas.
All right, Atul, stay on with us. We're tracking further updates. The National Disaster Management Agency has said that around 2,000 people were evacuated from Nagakeo following the earthquake. BNPB says that several homes, warehouses and government buildings sustained damage in the area. Authorities are continuing to assess the full extent of the damage. Atul, help us understand the development that we're tracking over here. The understanding that we have is that there are 2,000 people at present who've been evacuated from Nagakeo, but based on administrative data, the population over there is 1.6 lakh. So again, there's a large chunk of people who still need to be looked at, who need to, who need to be seen as the rescue and relief operations continue. What is the information that we have as far as, the evacuation process is concerned?
Well, certainly what we are given to understand is that about 2,000 people were, spontaneously evacuated from the Nagako Regency area, and that obviously this district is positioned much closer to the earthquake's origin point, the epicenter. And these people have been, evacuated from these areas, and several of the, residential buildings, as well as over 70, in fact, what we're learning, 6 government offices, 5 medical facilities, 3 places of worship, and all of these have, assessed to have sustained heavy damage, and infrastructural damages on these buildings have been, underwent. Now, what we're given to understand is that yes, obviously, thousands of additional residents are being actively urged or are being evacuated right now, and are being displaced. In fact, due to the structural hazards that most of the buildings in this area have suffered. And also the fact that a severe wave of aftershocks, a couple of aftershocks that have been reported, that too has not helped out things. So clearly there are people who are being warned as well to not to return to their homes or enter any buildings which are showing any signs of visible cracks, because the tremors, that the aftershocks that have been coming, that could further enhance the cracks and maybe lead to collapse of those buildings who are barely standing anymore. And obviously the fact that there are several unreached areas as well where emergency teams have not reached yet. So clearly the death toll and the numbers of the people who have been injured, that could also go even higher as people and the rescue teams keep getting deeper and deeper into those affected areas.
All right, Atul, appreciate you joining us on the broadcast and sharing all those details. We're going to leave it there and shift our focus to some breaking developments coming in from West Bengal. West Bengal's Special Task Force has arrested 3 individuals